And I just usually will go out and put a couple posts in the ground, just some wood posts, and then went and started cutting like a big white pine limb. And for whatever reason, that white pine, is the sap in there. And then we'll put it in a strategic location. I just anchor it on each of these posts, or you can put it between a tree and a post or two trees. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, the deer, they like that. They'll lick it, they'll rub it. And
this segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Leupold, American to the core.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast, powered by DeerCast. This is episode number 221, if you can believe it.
And we're starting our month or 2 month journey into deer season with hitting these Drury Outdoors team members here. And we're going to get some good in-depth deer hunting 101 type stuff out.
Hunting spelled with no G's.
That's right. You're Tim Chelsvik with a couple extra letters in your last name.
Mm-hmm. You're Matt Drury.
I got just two R's, a U and a Y.
It's pragmatic. And we've got a DoD team member, Dave Kramer, on.
Longtime DoD guy. He's been consistent as anybody on the team over the years. And what's great about him and why I thought he would be a good guest is the level that he goes to on making his spot better. And a lease that turned into a piece that he bought. And, and he's also got some other leases with Kalen Linz. And, I know Rick Malik comes in and hunts with him a lot. And it's just, I'm looking forward to diving into seeing what all he's got planned for this year.
A consistent killer.
Hey, and that's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're talking about a mature caliber, whitetail, smaller parcels. I mean, him and his son have really, really done a great job over the years. So I think we could all learn a little bit there.
Yeah. And those guys really put in the work. And I liked it. Dave said in a social post at some point, or I don't know where he said it at actually, but people think that just because you live in Iowa, you got monster deer hiding behind every tree. You just got to go out and sit. And the reality is you got to put in the work for it. And Dave definitely does.
Yeah. Yep.
So speaking of work, our friends on our 100% Wild podcast crew Facebook page, which you, the listener, can join if you'd like.
This is new.
It's new, and they have been giving us some feedback.
Is it good or is it bad?
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Okay. All right. So the first shout out is from Thomas Newberg. And he says, great show, guys. Can't wait for next week. Dr. Woods is always a treat, and Mark as a bonus. This is a great, can't miss. Tim Chelsvik, better dig out some good questions. So we had Dr. Grant Woods on last week with Mark Drury, and we were talking about nudnicks.
You were talking about nudnicks.
Wait, neonics.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the long version.
Neonicotinoids.
Yeah. Nudnicks.
If you're concerned about the declining turkey population, that's a must listen to or must watch show. Go back and listen to that. Both Dr. Grant Woods and Mark are raising a yellow flag about what the potential impact the seed coating has on not only turkeys, but deer and insects and pretty much anything that browses on these seeds that have been on the plants that were germinated from seeds coated with neonics.
Yeah. And Dr. Grant, I mean, he's just such a wealth of knowledge in many ways when it comes to the whitetail community. So, turkeys, that's his passion. He's known that stuff just as well as he knows the whitetail side. Everybody thinks of the whitetail side with Dr. Grant, but it goes well beyond that.
Yeah. So definitely an interesting and alarming conversation. So definitely go back and listen to that if you haven't already. And that is Thomas Niemerg. I'm sure he would give us feedback if we called him Newberg.
Oh, did I call him Newberg?
Yeah.
I'm going to call him Newman now. Newman.
That's what you get, Thomas. We just gave you a new last name. Sorry about that. And then
I can't read.
Nathan Kopp.
Hold it.
I can't read.
I was like, you're doing your own soundboard hits. Man does it all. Nathan Kopp says, I love the podcast. Keep up the great work. I watch old reruns every day at lunch.
Man, this guy's hard up.
And he is another 100% Wild crew member over there on Facebook.
So you left a message on that Facebook page about somebody leaving a bad review over in the Apple, like the podcast reviews. Mm-hmm. So I made the mistake of going to read the reviews. Whew.
Some people that don't like us over there.
That soundboard, it's 50-50.
Yeah. It's funny because some people were like, get more serious. You guys jack around too much. And then other people love the soundboard. I was thinking the same thing. But
hey, guess what? It's our podcast.
It's the people that like it that don't. They're probably not going to give feedback. They're probably just going to say, "Oh, hey, it's Wednesday. I'm going to download the show. I love listening to these guys," and they get on with their lives. Like they don't feel the need to have to try to influence the podcast with a crappy review.
Well, we need their review now, and it's if you can make it funnier, there's a better chance that it's going to be read on the podcast.
100%. So thank you. These shout outs were all from the 100% Wild crew. And we'll do that. We'll mix them in, but we do need your podcast reviews. So do that in your podcast player. Those really help us.
All right.
We need
enough
help.
with the jib jab. Let's go.
Let's talk about some news.
All right.
If you're in Alabama, you can now pursue pigs and coyotes overnight. Sounds like fun. And you can shoot them too.
Oh, okay. You're just running after them.
Get back here, you. But yeah, they're trying to control their predator and their feral hog population.
It's probably too late. I mean, down there in the South, and it's working its way. I know like Southern Missouri, it's already like getting bad. Right? I mean,
no, I was thinking, I was going to say Nudnik Central.
Hey, I didn't say that. You said that.
I didn't say, don't you say that.
No, but it's just as you talk to anybody, you talk to the guys down in West Point, Mississippi, they're like, man, it's the scourge of our time. These feral hogs just coming up through.
Ripping up the soul.
Yeah. I mean, doing literally billions of dollars of damage to the whole southern part of the country. I don't know why you're laughing.
My impersonation. They never say soil. In the South, they say soul.
Soul. Yeah. Now you're offending our viewers, Tim.
Some of them, not all of them.
Well, we don't know where they're from, actually. Maybe none of them.
So that article is up in DeerCast. Also, Mark and Grant Woods last week were talking about that high school program where they're giving high school students bounties for going out and killing coyotes and other predators. So, there are interesting ways of controlling predator populations outside of just night hunting. And I think we just have to get innovative.
Yeah. Shoot all that you see, basically, right?
Yep.
All right.
We got a shooter waiting in the wings here.
Without further ado.
There's no more ado for you, Dave Kramer.
What's up, Dave?
Not too much, guys. How are you doing?
We're good. Sorry to make you sit through that.
Hey, no problem. I'm not sure I'm podcast worthy, but I appreciate being on here.
We aren't either. So
yeah, anybody can have a podcast.
Literally anybody can.
All you need is literally a phone. You don't even need a mic.
Yeah. Old school. So Dave, how long have you been on the Drury Outdoors team? Kind of give people a rundown of your history.
So I've been bow hunting, 32, 34 years or so. And a little over half that, actually, probably 18, 19 years I've been a part of this fantastic team. So it's been a great ride.
How did you get on the Bow Madness crew?
Drury Outdoors first. That's probably the real question. How'd you get on the Drury Outdoors team? Because then, there's a natural progression of he was on Dream Season early on with Bill Gadeen, Land of the Giants, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So take us back to how you got onto the Drury Outdoors team.
So it's been, I started I watching the Drury videos way back just out of high school and in college, and just, it kind of drew me to it. And late 90s, I actually bought a camera and started playing around with it and filming. And I sent Mark a letter was in a little video clip of some stuff that I'd filmed, and he wrote me back and, basically said, we'd be interested in seeing what you can do. And they wanted me to upgrade cameras. And so I just went and spent the money and bought the camera, and just happened to that fall fell into some bucks that were locked up. And it was actually late January, 2 big mature bucks that had locked up. And my cousin called me and said, hey, we're going to go try to get these bucks apart. You want to come along? And I literally just grabbed the camera on the way out the door. And it was a Canon XL1, filmed it. We separated them and got it all laid down and sent it in. And I think it was a Whitetail Madness VHS tape. And that was kind of my foot in the door, and then it's gone from there. So
Rode their misfortune to the heights of stardom.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look at that one. I don't recall that one. That must have been before I started. What year would that, like 0203 or?
No, it was before. I think it was right around 2000. I don't remember the exact year, but
Yeah, that would have been before I started. Cause that sounds, I mean, we've had a few locked buck pieces since then. The Lindsay one and the Mark and Wade had one or two, and those are always incredible pieces of footage, like intense moments, especially those big Iowa deer.
yeah, it was pretty cool and pretty lucky, pretty fortunate, really. I mean, just it kind of all fell into place. So
Would you guys ever shoot a deer in that scenario?
No.
No.
The only way I could see that happening is if they had already, worked themselves. So, they're just tired, exhausted, and that you're like, there's no way this animal is going to live. Maybe then it would make sense. But I mean, we've seen it time and time again, guys, hunters, outdoors people, they're just trying to free them. And, and they're always big deer. It seems like that are getting locked together, just kind of the way their antlers.
They got more to get locked up.
Yeah. So Mark, actually, I just proofed this piece. It's not ready yet for DoD TV, but he was after a giant last year. Disappeared, and they found him during shed season, locked. Him and another big deer locked, and they did a whole storyline and produced this piece on this. We're putting in our Heartbreaker series because, of course, they never caught up to him. The deer died, but it should be coming out here in a couple weeks, maybe a month, and it's an incredible story. And this deer is just gigantic, and it's always they lock it such a perfect way. It's like a puzzle almost, like 1 in a million kind of a chance that it would get locked, but there's some flyer or kicker or something drop tying that locks it in, and there's just no getting out of it.
So that's the origin story of Dave Kramer. That's something.
That's pretty much it. I started filming a little bit after that, and it took a few years to actually get brought on board as a team member. So, and then we just kind of progressed from there, Bill Gadeen and myself. So.
That year you were on Land of the Giants. So that would have been your first year on the TV shows, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So Dream Season, Land of the Giants, I think that would have been like season 4, maybe season 4, season 3, something like that. I think 4, because we had Dream Season, then we had Dream Season Amateurs, then we had Pros versus Hams, and then I think it was Land of the Giants.
There might have been a couples in there too, maybe.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Couples and then Land of the Giants. So it would have been like Missouri. We were trying to represent states. Wisconsin, Joe Eichster, Iowa with Bill and Dave, Illinois, I think Keith Kuhn and Rod Wilson, which are 2 characters. Missouri had John Williams, right? And who? Oh, Coon Dog.
Coon Dog.
And
2 characters.
Wisconsin, Joe Eichster, and
what was Joe's partner? I can't think of it.
Can't remember right.
But
Eric Grover.
And I'm trying to think, was there any other states in there?
Nope.
Yeah. So it was a good season. It was a fun season, but if I remember right, you guys, because who the hell won that season? Was it
Ohio? Forgot about Ben and Tim.
That'd be a tough one to forget because he killed a 200-inch deer.
Heck.
Yep.
So yeah, it was. Those are the fun years. So, is there a time or a story from that season, like one of the group hunts or something that we had Rick Malik on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about, their group hunt because he was on the original Dream Season. I always like to hear you guys' thoughts on what, how it went for you or what something that stood out.
Oh, it was the whole thing was fun. Bill and I had a rough spell missing. I think Bill missed a couple of deer that year. I missed deer that year, and but then we won the shooting competition down at Terra. So that was kind of neat. And then we ended up late season, both killing 2 big giants and one of my biggest deer to date yet. So it was a good time. And it was a good thing I did because we were kind of, we weren't doing so well
on the bubble.
Yeah, pretty much. Probably finished last, I'd guess on that.
Gotta make something
tied for last.
So, You're pretty active on social, and whenever you post something, I watch it because it's well thought out. You posted something about a windsock maybe a couple years ago now. Like, you like to have a windsock on your property because when you drive in, you can see, the weather forecast may say one thing, but locally it may be a little bit different. So, and Dave has all these little hacks and tricks that he likes to share. So help the listeners, the viewers right now, figure out kind of what you're doing. What's your typical summer? Like, what are your priorities in the summertime that set you up for success during the fall?
Well, for me, it starts as soon as the season's over. And for most hunters, I'm an avid shed hunter. I just love picking up antlers because you're not confined to just one. You can pick up as many as you can find. So I run Reconyx cameras all the way up through till I know the last shed is down. And then I will just go start collecting, get an inventory on who survived, made through the season, so I can start the next year off, on the right foot. And I'll pull cameras for a couple months. Usually by mid-June, I've got them all back out. And just start trying to collect data and collect inventory for the next season. So just to make sure who survived, and then it's go from there. It's food plot time, running cameras, putting out feed, and doing all the work that needs to be done on the farm, mowing, clover, doing everything else that way. So so far that's what I've gotten done here for this year.
Okay. So I was just gonna say it'd be great if you guys could stop mentioning brand names.
Yeah,
because this is not 100% commercial.
It's an infomercial.
The whole thing, the show is just one long infomercial.
That was one of the negative reviews, guys, that we need help with. So Dave, I'm with Tim. I like your social posts because it's always like something technical or something informative, or it's not look at me kind of a post. It's more of a, hey, here's what I do that might help you if you find it interesting or want to utilize it on your own piece. So this farm that you do most of the work on, correct me if I'm wrong, but you used to lease it for a long time and then you had an opportunity to purchase it.
Yes.
How many acres are you talking here?
It's a small piece. Most everything I've got to hunt is small. It's an 80-acre farm. Started leasing it. I've hunted it for, since back in the early 90s. And then I was actually a customer of mine, a dairy customer. And he kind of kept it for me. And I just began to, hey, here's a way to compensate you for saving this for me and allowing me to hunt it. I just started paying him a lease. I think I was probably the first person in the area to start leasing a piece of ground, which, a lot of the locals didn't like it, but it kept it for me. And then after about 10, 15 years of doing that, and I was able to finally jump in and purchase it. So, and then from there, it's just been making every improvement I can on the farm to make it better for the wildlife, for deer, turkeys, everything, at least from my perspective, to try to make it better for the hunting as well.
So when you because you've had it, maybe 3-4 years? I know you did an episode on Bow Madness about it. That's what I'm thinking back on.
Yeah, we did. My Own Piece of the Pie was the first show. That's the year that we had bought it. So originally it was 29 acres of tillable ground that was farmed heavily. And so the first thing I did was we started planting trees, 5,000 trees we put in the ground and then trying to maintain them and get them, because obviously I'm never going to see the benefit, the biggest benefit of the trees, but that was the first step. And then we enrolled all the tillable into CRP. So try to make more cover, the native grasses, native flowers, and make it better for everything there. And then it's just been about putting the food in and then, just to make it better. Just that's been the whole thing.
So on those 5,000 trees, what kind of trees were you putting in? And then what kind of maintenance does it take to ensure, what's the percentage that make it out of 5,000, 3,000, 2,000? What's the percentage that will make it?
You try to make them all, get them all to survive. I've done spent a lot of money on tree tubes. It's amazing how fast they'll grow when you tube them. I've learned a lot about that as I've done it, a little bit of misguided information from the company I bought the tree tubes from, but there's a lot of things to that: mowing, spraying the tree rows to try to keep the weeds down so the trees get a chance to go. But if you put a tube on them, they'll just shoot right up, and you get a lot more growth out of them right away. The downside of that is if you don't support the tubes, then the trees shoot up and they get too much foliage and then they tip over. So there's some things you got to do for that as well. But as far as percentage, I would say, if I'm lucky to probably have 50% of them that are going to probably survive. So,
and what kind of trees did you say you're planting?
All hardwoods, mostly oaks,
Okay.
some black walnuts, cherries. But mostly oaks.
Is that mainly for the mass crop?
Yeah, I should say cedars as well for cover. I put a lot of cedars in. They're a little easier to maintain that way. But yeah, mostly just something about an oak tree to me. I just, they're a big majestic tree when they're fully grown, and then the mass that you get, you get the feed out of them too.
Sure.
So.
Talk about your process. I'm fascinated by this. You electrify some of your food plots with fencing. Talk about that process and what got you started there.
Well, Tom Ware and Scott Manifold, they did a piece on Bow Madness a few years ago that they fenced off a bean field, and my back field is surrounded on three sides by timber, so it gets a lot of browse pressure. And 2 years ago, I just got tired of beating my head against the wall. I'd put beans or corn in, and they'd come in and they'd eat the top side of the corn. I'd get nothing, just no crop at all. And so there was nothing late season for them. So I watched what they did and got some good advice from Tom, and he kind of pointed me in the right direction. So what I did is that it's a 2-acre field. I ripped up the outside and I put a 12-foot clover strip all the way around it. And then I put my fence in. I put a double row. The outside row is one's at 2.5 foot strand and then 4.5 foot. And then the inside row is 4 foot in. And I put that at 3.5 foot. And it's got to be maintained. I just got done this weekend weed trimming the whole thing. That's the third time I've done it this year, just to keep the clover down so it doesn't short the fence out. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. The deer just do not go in there. And it really helped out with the crop. So
now, can you run a system like that in an area where you don't have electric? Can you run it off a car battery with a solar?
Solar. Yeah. You can go to any farm supply store and buy a solar, solar charged fencer, so to speak. And it doesn't take a super hot fencer, but you just have to maintain it, keep the weeds off the fence, and then make sure you put a rope style or a band style that the deer can actually see when they come up to it. So, if they don't see it, they may run into it, jump it, twist it up, pull it down, but they don't mess with it at all. It really works. It's a game changer for me.
What time of the year do you then decide to take that down?
So I leave it up until we're going to hunt, usually probably right before the shotgun seasons. I don't shotgun hunt. I basically try to stay out of the farm during that season because everybody around is, pushing deer around. And if they can push them into me, all the better. And so I'll open it up just before the shotgun season, and then I'll go in and mow some down. I've talked with the DNR officer in my area, and it is allowed to do that. And so I'll mow some down, and it just pulls deer in from everywhere. So,
what's a typical cost on electric fence, like a unit, and maybe I'm assuming you pay by the yard or whatever for the strand?
Well, I probably did it a little different. You can go buy kits. I think I've seen Pat and Nicole. They put some kit out, or they have a kit that they buy that's lower cost. Now, I went through the effort, and all my corner posts, I put wood posts in, and I think every 30 feet, I would put a steel T-post. So I've got $1,500 wrapped up in that 2-acre field.
Okay.
But once it's in, you don't ever, you should never have to change it. And then I'll just go in and wrap that wire up, roll it up, and store it in my shed, and then put it back up. And I don't open up all the sides. I open up 2 sides of it to try to keep the deer coming in from certain directions as well. But so
do you rotate from beans to corn, every other year, or you just continue planting
Mostly corn.
Yeah.
When I know I'm going to do a burn on the CRP, like this last year, I put beans in because I didn't want that field to, really go along with the CRP because I've got a elevated muddy blind up there and I, didn't want to burn it up. So just this last year I had beans in. Now I'm back to corn, and in a couple of years I'll probably do another burn out there, and I'll probably do the same thing. So, and it's a must when you're surrounded by timber to fence that bean field off, because there's nothing left. I tried it and I had nothing. So the fence has really made a difference.
How many acres are you talking about there? What you're fencing in?
It's 2 full acres, right at 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you can tell, everything that Dave does, 5,000 trees, he's getting the good stuff for the street, to put the fence in. Like, it's all, he doesn't half-ass anything. He doesn't pull any corners.
That's why he's on the podcast.
That's right, Tim. So there's a lot to be learned there in doing the work and how much work it really takes to get to the level that these guys get to. And that's why I wanted to have them on the podcast, because you think, I'm doing, I did this, I sprayed the food plot. I look back at the years where we struggled at the lease or wherever. And it's like, we didn't have everything lined up the way it should be. Like, there's a lot of different levels and steps it takes to get to the level these guys are. We're nowhere near that, but it just shows you how much effort you need to put into it to get to the next tier. And you're truly making your 80 acres the best 80 acres you can make it, right?
That's what I'm trying. You bet. That's for sure. I do have really good neighbors. I mean, that is a must as well. I mean, one side of my farm, not so good, but the neighbors that I do have on 3 sides are just fantastic. They're on the same page as me. So it helps big time.
We should probably also mention that Dave has a more than full-time job. Like, he's not, sometimes people think that our guys that hunt on our teams,
just hunt.
That's what they do. They don't. Like, they're kind of extreme weekend warriors in that they not only work more than, most of them are, running businesses or heavily involved in the work that they do. And they're doing this additional work of hunting, not only hunting, but filming, all their hunts. So Dave, how much time do you spend at work? Like, how do you juggle the responsibilities of your job and hunting at the level that you do?
Well, I'm fortunate. I'm a small business owner, a dairy equipment dealership in my hometown. So it's not far from home. I don't travel a long ways to get to and from work. I'm lucky to have the family, the wife that puts up with this, so to speak. My free time is usually spent out at the farm doing stuff, working, doing something, whether it's maintaining, trees, maintaining the CRP, anything. But it's mainly, fortunately, I'm only about 5 minutes from the farm. So I literally get off work, get home, I jump in the truck and I'm there. So that helps big time. If I had to travel 2-3 hours just to get to my main farm, it wouldn't be happening the same. So anyway.
I can just picture Dave walking out the front door saying, "Bye, dear, going to the farm to do some stuff."
And never coming back.
Well,
pretty much.
So, okay. So you're planting, beans, corn. What type of green plots do you plant, or do you plant any for the fall?
Yeah, I put in the turnips, biologic maximum usually is what I end up put in. I'm playing around a little bit. This year, I've got about 2 acres, 1.5 acres to 2 acres. Ripped up a couple new plots this year. Some clover that needed to be redone. I'm going to put some turnips and radishes in there as well. So I've got about 1.5 acres to 2 acres worth of biologic product we put in the ground.
So in the 80 acres between your, grain and green, what are you talking, like 4 or 5 acres total of food plots?
I've got a little over 10 and a half acres total. Okay. Counting the clover, I've got 2 corn fields. I've got 2 2-acre fields, one on the north, one on the south, and then about 5 acres of of clover. It's burn strip around the CRP, and then another piece that was not enrolled in CRP, and then the rest of it I put into turnips and radishes every year. So,
okay,
over 10%.
So here it is, early August, and I'm curious what your philosophy is on your trail cam picks and how you're running your trail cams at this point in the season.
I bounce them around a lot. Not just on my farm. I've got a lease close to home. We've got that new lease down in Southern Iowa with Kalen. And I've got a couple pieces up here that I just hunt by permission. So I've got a dozen Reconyx cameras and I'm bouncing them around. I usually will put some mineral out in certain areas. You got to be careful with that. But, and then, as the closer we get, I like to put the horizontal rub posts up when we get to that velvet shedding time. And it's amazing the pictures you'll get on that. Water holes, I'll put some over those, but I'm constantly bouncing around trying to locate that deer. Small properties, we're literally looking for one opportunity a year. That's if I get one chance at a big mature buck each year, I'm happy. Well, now with Dalton involved, now we're looking for 2. Rick Malick's coming this year, so now we're looking for 3. So
bastards,
2.5 for me. It's Rick.
So there you go. But it gets tougher every year. And when I first bought this property, I was sure that within 5 years, okay, I'm going to have a booner running around out here. But 80 acres, it doesn't happen. And as of yet, we still have not had anything that would reach that point. And then it was 5-year-old. I'm only going to shoot 5-year-olds. Well, there was a dry spell of 2 to 3 years where I didn't shoot a deer because I'm holding out for 5-year-old. Well, the last couple of years, now it's more about anything over 4 that suits me. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on it. So especially with Dalton and I both trying to get it done each year, and then when Rick comes in. So
it's one of the areas where I think hunting is so countercultural because we're always looking for a quick fix. Like we don't want a solution that's going to take multiple years to come to fruition. Like we want something we can throw down on the ground and have big bucks coming in a few months. And it's interesting to hear Dave, who is a whitetail veteran, talking about multi-year strategies here and the investment that goes into that.
Dave, I want you to dive into that horizontal post thing for us a little bit. Give us more, because I hadn't really heard much about this until just a few months ago. And I find it really interesting because the guys that use them say that they're just magnets. So take us through, like, you're building something, you're putting something out. What exactly are you talking about here?
Yeah. So Dalton, and he watches some other podcasts and whatnot, and some hunting public and that, the hunt. And he brought the idea to me, and a good friend of mine was messing around with it, Dave Schlarman. And I just usually will go out and put a couple posts in the ground, just some wood posts, and then went and started cutting like a big white pine limb. And for whatever reason, that white pine, is a sap in there. And then we'll put it in a strategic location. I just anchor it on each of these posts, or you can put it between a tree and a post or 2 trees. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, the deer, they like that. They'll lick it, they'll rub it. And mainly that October part, early October is when you really get the pictures, but put a Reconyx camera on there and it's unbelievable the pictures you'll get.
Would a cedar work just about as good as a pine? Just
not as well. Huh. If you can go to an old windbreak on a farm somewhere where they'll allow you to cut a couple limbs off, you want something in that 3 to 6 inches in diameter, and just anchor it in there. However, I've seen guys that just wire them up. I usually lag them into these posts, and you want to replace it every year because it needs to be fresh, and that sap and real sticky sap, and it is crazy. They really work.
In my mind, I'm thinking, do I have any white pine?
Yeah, I've got 4 of them in my yard.
Perfect. 2 for you, 2 for me.
Yeah, right. Honey, Matt and I are going to do some sawn in the backyard.
That's interesting.
She won't flinch.
Yeah. We obviously use, the tree koi kind of, scenario a lot. And I know there's certain kind of trees that do better than others. And I don't know, you see, a lot of people that'll have like, a fence post that's the deer have kind of just whittled away to nothing. But until recently, I just had not heard much about this horizontal theory, and it seems like people use it, just love it.
There's a guy that made a post in DeerCast. It's been a couple years now, but he put a trail cam up on a horizontal rub post, and it was, you could tell it was worn down, and he got incredible video of deer coming up and just going to town on it. So making me think I need to install a couple out on my hunting grounds.
Yeah, you can try different types of pine, but I've found that the white pine has worked the best. So
okay,
anyway,
well, some more work to do. Dave, is there anything else you think, like a parting shot as far as what you've learned in terms of your prep over the years that you just can't get by without, that you think people would be light years ahead if they only knew about?
No, not that I can really think of it. I've learned so much over the years with the whole videoing thing. It drives me to try to do more, to lay it down so I can tell that story. And I think I'm a much better deer hunter over the years, just for the fact that we're trying to produce a show every year, and it makes you go that extra step. So it's there and it's documented when the time comes for the show. But I'm just an average guy, just like you, trying to get out and do the best you can and hope for that one opportunity every year.
Yeah, that's what I always say. It's like you get one chance, and it's amazing if something goes wrong, how crappy your season goes from there, but if it goes right, all of a sudden, especially if you're hunting a couple states or you got a couple tags in your pocket, it's like, all right, now on to this thing or on to that thing. But boy, it goes wrong and your season gets elongated. Your home life
it gets dark.
It gets dark
mentally, psychologically.
It's just one chance, one opportunity.
And there's more things that can go wrong that then need to go right.
Yeah. And that's where the preparation comes into place. That's where shooting your bow every day comes into place, or making sure your gun's sighted in, and, those things that you just can't take for granted that, oh yeah, I haven't shot for a few days, I'm just going to go out there. And I don't know. I just feel like if the chance comes, first of all, you owe it to the animal to try to be the top of your game. But second of all, it's like, you may not get another shot. So better make this one count.
Don't screw up.
Yeah, I've screwed up plenty.
I've done that a few times myself.
Yeah.
So we've got our buddy Ben Schroyer that has kind of a situation on his hands. So we're going to help him out with this week's question of the day. All
right. The question of the day is proudly brought to you by Nomad Outdoor, building the most innovative and authentic hunting apparel for your next expedition.
We've done this before.
Epidemic.
Hey guys, I have a question. I have a hunting property in central Indiana that has great potential for great bucks. It's private, but it feels like I'm hunting public because the landowner lets other people come on the property even though I'm the only one allowed to hunt it. I'm afraid to invest money to improve the property. How can I manage this property in my favor? The farmer harvests early. The property floods. People use ATVs constantly. People target practice with guns.
Jeez.
But fortunately for me, I found a 200-inch class buck found dead on this property. And I know the potential of what it could be. Please help. Thank you.
That's an SOS. He's got a lot of things stacked up against him.
My short description for Ben's question was his hunting property is a pee-pee soaked heck hole.
That's a nice way to put it.
It's bad.
He's got a lot of things. He painted it. You talked about dark.
He kept saying, and they train ninjas on the property.
Not to laugh because this poor guy, that sucks, and when you got neighbors and stuff doing that, or, they're trespassing or they're doing whatever they want to do. Deer do not like intrusion like that. And I'm shocked. I wonder how that 200-inch deer died.
He said it as kind of a silver line, but in my mind, I was thinking, well, the deer's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. His genetics are probably around, but
I think of like Dad's had his place 17, 18 years. There was a maybe a mid 190s that was killed there like year or two before, when it was in like North American whitetail before he bought it.
Okay.
And then I can't think of one other deer, Mr. Christmas, that went over 200. I mean, it doesn't, and this is a property that they're doing everything right, and it's no intrusion. I mean,
no breakdancing.
Just because it happened once doesn't mean it's going to happen again. I mean, that's the tough part. I mean, Dave, what do you think about, you got a smaller parcel, you got, like you said, one bad neighbor, 3 good neighbors. Like, how do you even approach something like this?
Well, first thing that come to my mind would, I don't know what kind of repertoire he's got with the landowner, but what I would recommend doing, approach him, tell him your concerns, and offer compensation to the guy. Say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Is there a way I could compensate you? Lease wise, whatever. I mean, that's the first thing I would do, and say, hey, I would be willing to pay you this much, or so much an acre to try to hold back on that intrusion because you're trying to make it a better property. That immediately come to mind when I heard that story, because he's fighting a losing battle the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, if people are target practicing
that one, it was like, whoa, just from a safety perspective, being in there and wanting to hunt, how do they know when he's in there? I think about, I don't know if that state, the purple paint law is I assume that's something
double PL.
Yeah. Yeah. But you go and paint, every, 20 yards or 30 yards. I forget what the distance
20
is.
inches, I think.
And then you put the posted no hunting signs. I mean, if the landowner will allow you to do that kind of thing, but I mean, those are some first steps I would take, but honestly, I'd also look to see where these ATVs are coming in. I mean, it might be, it's an investment, but you might put up some fencing, even a couple strands, barbed wire. Does he own this or he leases this, or he does? I forget.
It didn't
what he
sound
said.
Like he leased it. It sounds like that's where
he gets to hunt there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some things that you could potentially do. I'd start with Dave's suggestion. And if, like the American Hunting Lease Association, we had Sean on a few weeks back, they have an insurance that you can get, for a couple $100, you get the insurance and you can put the landowner's name on it. So you're showing him that you're making an investment to make his property safe and protect him. I mean, there are certain things that I think maybe just getting in better with the landowner and kind of not bending his ear. You want to take a right approach, because who knows what he's told these other people if he's allowing them to come in.
Yeah.
You don't want to step on any toes, especially you found a hunting spot. That's great. That's hard to do these days. So you don't want to burn a bridge, certainly, but there may be some things that you can do to year by year kind of start to diminish the amount of intrusion that's happening. I mean, intrusion is just, you're not going to be overly successful. It doesn't mean you can't be successful. I mean, gun seasons all across the country prove every year that we can be successful. But, to try to up your odds, I think you need to try to year by year slowly eliminate the best you can some of the intrusion that's just unwarranted. I mean, ATVs riding through the property, guns, shooting on the property, like those are things that deer don't tolerate for the most part. Mm-hmm. I mean, can they get used to it? Yeah, I guess. But
if there's a property next door where they're not hosting those things, they're going to live over there.
They may also just be nocturnal on your property because of those things. So there's certain, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things stacked up against you, but that doesn't mean that you can't slowly and surely kind of make your way out of that hole that's been dug, not even your fault.
Metaphorical.
Yeah. There may be other holes on that property.
Some deadfall traps.
Yeah. So that's what I would do. I'd start with Dave's approach, and then I'd start seeing if the landowner will allow you to kind of put, the purple paint up, the no posted signs, maybe a gate. We when I bought that river farm a couple years ago, it had no fence, it had no gate, it flooded a lot, so there was no real reason. But I thought, okay, there's one real way into this property. There's a lot of ways on a four-wheeler you could have got in, but I said there's one real way as far as a kind of a road, an access point. There's no gate. There was just like, one chain, like, ooh, that's not stopping anybody. So the very first thing we did was we got a postal digger and we dug the holes and we put up a nice gate. It cost us, a few $100, but that there is deterrent in a lot of ways, just right there.
Yeah.
You know,
if it cuts down on 20% of the people that might come through, that's still something.
So
the other thing is there's that whole, what is this, the sunken investment myth that like you need to keep if you've invested in something to some degree, you need to keep investing in it because you're already in so deep. It may be time just to cut bait and say, I'm not going to waste my time and effort here. And I'm going to focus on finding a new piece of ground. So that's another.
I would focus on finding a new piece first because it is tough. I mean, it's harder and harder to find a lease these days. So I would certainly not cut ties until you had something else in place. And you run into that a lot too, where you got a piece, but maybe there's somebody else that can hunt it, or maybe there's something going, you found people living on the one piece at one time. It's just like, sometimes you just put up a BS and much like Ben, you just got to deal with it sometimes. But you went to the landowner, you told her what was happening. I mean, you also made them aware, something they may not have known about.
And you can get good intel, like MRI from hobos.
So the deer aren't moving near here.
Right, it's weird. Every time we have our encampment and cook our beans, you don't see the bucks.
Cows love us.
All right. How about the wildlife word?
How about it?
Wildlife Word is brought to you by the American Hunting Lease Association, your hunting access resource. Okay, so questing is the term that describes this behavior.
Questing.
I
think I can help with the whole Pam situation. Step Brothers reference.
Yes. So questing is a term that describes this behavior: going over the wedge on a hill. B, a tick waving its legs looking for a host. C, when a deer's wound heals over. C, when a deer's wound heals over. Or D, none of these.
Dave, I know you probably listen to other people's podcasts, but this is a segment where we let the guest go first. What do you think here? This riveting question of the day. Oh,
I've never heard that word before, but I guess I would say C.
When a deer's wound heals over.
Sure. Of all these, I enjoyed the visual of B the most, a tick waving its legs looking for a host, but I thought of it in a dirty way. Hey,
check this out. I'm waiting for a cat call or something. It's actually B. So,
damn it. With my gut instinct.
The way that ticks typically latch on to a host is they will go to the very tip, like the end of a blade of grass or something, and they will splay their arms out in front and they will wave them back and forth, trying to hey, it must be the money. And that's how they
the windows to the wall.
That's how they hitch a ride. The term is called questing. They're on a quest for a host.
Now you know, Dave.
Interesting. I'll pass that on to Dalton. Maybe he can try that out, maybe pick up a girlfriend somewhere.
I don't think a wave works if he's waving his legs.
There's a young man on the side of the road just waving his legs. What's that all about? Well, the young man is questing. That's what he's doing.
That's what she said.
This is why people tune in.
Or tune out.
Yeah.
Based on some of those feedback in the comments.
The show is unlistenable.
Well, I like it.
Yeah. I mean,
we find it comical.
It's a highlight in my week.
I can't believe I got that right.
Just go with it, man. Just be
cool.
That
perverted sense, it kind of guided me into the question.
Always steers you
the
right,
answer. Yeah, that's right. Well, it has done me well over the years, and done me not so well.
Little from column A and B.
All right.
Well, Dave, thanks so much for hopping on. It's great to kind of hear your behind the scenes how to, and obviously the philosophy. I think part of what we didn't talk a whole lot about was just the sheer work ethic that's involved and the willingness to do this pre-work.
I think if you're listening, you picked up on it. I mean, when you talk 5,000 trees, I know that is it's got to be a time consuming job. No, I can't imagine how long that took. And how are you planning? All right, before we leave, I got to ask, how are you planting 5,000 trees? Are you literally on your hands and knees, like putting them well, this is a winner right here.
the first planting was done with a machine, tractor and a machine planting. And that was about 3,000. And the rest I've just used a spade or shovel, tree spade, shovel. And every year I put more in the ground and then I'll tube them. the ones that I want, that I know I want to survive, or for sure. So yeah, I put about 1,500 of the tubes on as well. So.
Jeez. Yeah. I mean, that you talked about the cost of the fencing your beans and corn, but I can't imagine the cost of 5,000 trees and the tubes and the. Yeah, that's an investment. I hope Dalton and your daughters appreciate that, because that's an investment.
I do too.
Is Dalton helping you? He better be helping.
A little bit. That
son of a gun. All right. Well, I appreciate you jumping on with us, and we wish you guys the best of luck this fall. I know Rick said that he drew the Iowa tag, and Rick needs all the help he can get. So help that poor guy out.
We're looking forward to it. We always have a good time, regardless. The guy, he's very professional at what he does on the camera side. So I've learned a lot from Rick, and we always have a great time when he's out here. So we're looking forward to it.
Good deal. Cool. Good deal. Well, safe hunting this fall, and look forward to seeing you on DeerCast here, man.
Thank you, sir.
We should say, if anybody wants to follow Dave on social media, what's your Instagram handle, Dave?
It's Dave Kramer, Drury Outdoors.
All right.
Yeah, we'll link him up in the show notes. Also, we should say that by the time this show publishes, we will have drawn a person for the hunt with Mark and Terry. So that's exciting.
That is. I look forward to seeing who wins, man. There's a lot of entries, but there's still pretty good odds in general. I mean, so hopefully we picked a great winner, and I'm sure we'll talk about it and maybe have him on as a guest at some point in the future.
Definitely. Anything else we need to talk about?
Hey, man,
DeerCast wise,
getting ready to, deer season's coming, obviously. So we got a lot of back end stuff in DeerCast. So make sure you update your DeerCast app, every couple of weeks. And a lot of people's phones auto update. So, we're constantly putting out new versions of DeerCast, and some subtle changes and some big changes, and testing some pretty big stuff right now. Hopefully, we're not sure whether or not we're going to launch it yet this fall or not, but we'll know a lot more here in the next couple weeks, and some really, really cool features. So
that's
excited.
all we can say.
It is.
If we said more, we'd have to come to each of your houses and
all 5 of you.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time.
Let's shut it down.
All right. Peace out, everybody.
The results are in.
DeerCast said it was supposed to be a great night.
Well, here you go.
DeerCast said great.
It doesn't exist anywhere else but in DeerCast.
Hunters love DeerCast's exclusive deer movement forecast. Get ahead of your game with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's.